Hi, this is Ruth. Welcome to this week's video, and if you're new to my channel, it's really lovely to have you here. And this week I have been inspired to do a video on primal dance and dancing from home, ecstatic dance, something that we can do during lockdown and as we're spending more time on our own. So this video was really inspired by a lovely message I got from a lady in America, I think, or somewhere over either in South America or North America, and she basically messaged me asking me if I could give her a demo of some of the moves that I do when I do primal dance. And it was really interesting. We had a great conversation, and it brought up for me this idea that, you know, dancing is something that often we feel like we need instruction, or we need to be good at dancing in order to make dance part of our lives and part of our routine. And really, when it comes to the sort of dance where we talk about primal dance, which is very much a feeling into our own body and exploring what wants to come out of us really in relationship to the music that we're dancing to, it's really hard to kind of choreograph or give exact movements to do to that dance without kind of taking away the spirit of it. So that's really what we talked about together, and I thought it'd be interesting to do this video to kind of just shed some light on how important dance has been throughout history and how much it can really help us in our emotional lives. So for example, like at the moment we may be riding on a wave of so many emotions, so we may have times where we feel really high and we feel happy and we're relaxed, maybe our routine's a bit slower than normal, and then there may be other times when we're having like bouts of anxiety and real concerns about the current situation and things that are going on in our lives and our personal situations. So there are things that we can do to help us with those emotions, because emotions are basically energy in motion. And so if we feel emotions and we don't find a way to move through those and put them in motion in some way, whether it be tears, whether it be laughter, whether it be dance, so we need ways to move these emotions through the body. And dance is a really, really beautiful way of being able to physically do that however we're feeling. You know, dance is so related to music, and we all know that there are so many shades and genres of music that touch us in different ways. So it really is a way to connect and tap into those emotions and help them to move through the body. Because one of the things that I've been learning from my pregnancy yoga teacher, who I had on the last video that I did, Jenny Jones, is just how in our heads we can get, and how, to use that fancy word, how cerebral we can make everything. Especially at a time like this where there's so much uncertainty, we can get very up in our heads. And often what our body wants us to do is to really kind of be embodied and use the body as well as the mind. So there's a place for thinking and there's a place for the mind, but there's also a place for the body, which I feel like over recent times has become more lost. So we often think about, like, in the school system and when we're growing up, you know, little kids love to dance. They don't care if they're a good dancer or they're a bad dancer. Most of them just like waddle around like they're really drunk. So it's really important to them, and it seems like as maybe children hit that age of maybe 4 or 5 and they start to ascend and go up through the school ranks, dance is really lost as a core subject. So it tends to get taken over by all the brain heavy subjects, and if we're not careful, we end up walking around like brains in jars, and we lose that connection with how to use our bodies to help us to process. And so the idea of like a primal dance, which I've done a video on before. I'm going to post a link to it below, and I'm also going to, at the end of the video, once you've watched this, you can go directly on. I'm going to post it on the screen, and you can go on and watch that just to see me like just free flowing and doing what I interpreted at that moment to that piece of music as what felt good. And just this idea that primal dance and ecstatic dance are very much something that has always been part of our culture. So for however many thousands and thousands of years, from when we were hunter-gatherers, from when we were cavemen, you know, we would be in communion with our tribe, our community. We would use dance to celebrate, to mourn death, to welcome in new life, just to be together. And so the idea of primal dance is something that's always been important. And you know, even as we go through history, the ancient Greeks, they had a god called Dionysus, who was kind of this god of staying up all night and dancing and drinking wine. You know, this is the kind of thing that's always been important to people. So having that feeling that, you know, you feel like you can't dance because you're not good at it, or you're afraid what people might think, they're very much things that have come in over relatively recent times. So I think the idea that you've got to be some sort of like young, sexy, hip hop video extra in a club or whatever, that's the sort of image some of us have, that to dance in public we have to be really cool, and we have to be really young, and we have to have a great body, and that's just really robbing people of the experience of being able to dance. And dance is something where, like I said to the lady on the Instagram chat we had, it's really about knowing what just feels right to you. And it doesn't matter if it's kind of like jerky and ugly and you just want to shake, or you just want to kind of throw yourself around like people do in 5 rhythms. I'll post a link to the video I did on 5 rhythms form of dance. So it's really something that I would say to embrace what you feel in that moment. And the same for the type of music you want to do it to. I'm going to post a link below to a Spotify playlist I've got that has some kind of songs on that are very bassy and primal, and I like to dance too, so that might be a help to you. But equally, it might just not be your thing, and you might want to dance to something that's much more classical, or you might want to dance to something that's more of a house music. So it's really up to you. The most important thing is that you follow your feeling about what you fancy trying, and lockdown's a great time to just kind of close the curtains if you want to be completely alone, and just stick a tune on and see what comes out, and don't worry about looking in the mirror or what you look like, because no one can see you. So it can be a nice opportunity while we're not going out to places where we can dance, that we can try out what feels good to us at home. And in terms of like what kind of moves I would suggest you could try, you know, I always think like to do the video, I've not got myself barefoot, is best, and to really kind of like use the earth as your foundation, a bit like building a house. So use the earth as a way to ground you down, which is really good and needed at this time. Any sort of grounding practices that can keep us steady and stable are really good. And then like as you move up into the hips, you can create more of a flow, like especially for women, it's really nice to just like circular move the hips, and maybe move the hips back and forth. I'm doing this sat down. So yeah, you can move those hips around. These are just pointers, they're nothing definite. And then like see naturally what I just did then, like as you do that, you may feel like you want to move your arms, and you might want to think about like the water element, and you can kind of push around and flow and play, or you might want to do something that's more like jerky at points depending on the music that you're doing it to. And then also as well, like using your neck and your head and your shoulders to release tension, and kind of you can create waves with the body where you can kind of ripple, or like I said before, we can do a full body shake where we literally just like kind of go nuts. We can shake our hair and we can have a good shake off of any kind of energy and get that into motion. So it's really not something that I want to say, do this move, do that move. It's about learning what feels right to you. And to speak to that personally, you know, I'm going through a transition at the moment. I am, how many months am I now? Like four and a half, nearly 5 months pregnant. And so like my ideas about who I am and my body and all of the cultural expectations and standards that are placed on us are really coming up for me. So like I've been dancing at home and like I really like to have like quite like a sensual kind of flowing practice, feminine practice, and I've been feeling a little bit like, you know, I catch myself in the mirror and I'll be like, whoa, like I'm not got like a flatter belly anymore and my belly's sticking out, and I'm like, is it okay to be so like sensual and sexual when I'm carrying a baby? And actually what I'm finding is, from listening to like hypnobirthing and my yoga teacher, my pregnancy yoga teacher, is that yes, like it's so part of the process. It's just not something we see in our mainstream Western culture, but kind of that feeling of getting into our sexuality, our creativity, that birthing energy is very much part of being pregnant. So I'm trying to like embrace that and feel like it's okay to be sexy and have a bump and do that kind of dancing. So it's just really about playing around with what feels good to you. And as I said, I have done a video which you can see me doing it, so I'm going to post that around now. It should appear either here or here, and I will also put a link to it below. I'll put a link to my video about the 5 rhythms practice once we're able to meet up in groups. Hopefully the 5 rhythms practice will start again. And also as well that playlist I mentioned, which has just got some pointers if you want to try it. And like I say, just to know that it is your birthright to dance, and it is your birthright to dance like no one is watching and do what feels really good for your body and feels really juicy and helps you to get that energy in motion, those emotions flowing. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, you can like the video, you can comment, you can subscribe, which would really be lovely, and I will see you next week for another video. Alright, thanks guys, bye.